everyone. This video is going to be about MBTI and my experience with it and how it's helped me to understand the people around me a little bit better and their interactions, and to a certain extent myself, and why I think it's a very useful system and idea, despite the fact that people in various portions of the internet like to discredit it because it's pseudoscience or it's not able to be proven scientifically. I think it's a very useful thing, at least for me on a personal level. So yeah. So my first encounter with MBTI was when I was in high school and I was in a psychology class, and we took a really basic version of it. That was the dichotomy version of, are you introverted or extroverted? And I found the results fascinating because there were certain types that, because we had the printout that said kind of the percentages of it in the general population. Obviously types like ESTJ are more common than INTJ and things like this. But I remember in the class there were certain types that nobody was, and I thought that was interesting. And there were certain types that, perhaps looking back on it, were overrepresented because it was such a basic test using the dichotomies instead of the cognitive functions. And I think there were a lot of people, I remember, being intuitive types, which on the one hand could have been relatively accurate because it was an elective class in high school and it was psychology, so perhaps high schoolers who choose to do psychology as an elective might be more likely to be an intuitive type. And it was also an IB class, so I don't know, maybe that population has more intuitive types than the general population. But I remember being really interested with it, because even looking at the basic version that we had, I could see that it was kind of describing different types of people, and I could visualize people I had encountered in real life kind of as representations of each type. And when I took that test, I got INTP, and when I was in high school and before, and I still now to a certain extent, it was very hard for me to relate to other people, and it was a challenge for me to make friends, even though I wanted to be friends with people. It was very hard for me to connect with others, and INTP females are not very common in the population at all. And so to me, I thought, oh, well, that makes sense. Maybe there's not something severely wrong with me. Maybe I'm just different, right? Because, I didn't have I'm not like the other girls syndrome. I never really had that. Because I wanted to be friends with all the other girls. I just had a hard time doing it. So that was really interesting to me, and personality psychology has always been my favorite area of psychology, and I've always been interested in learning about the different theories, about how people are similar and different to one another. Another one that I found really interesting was Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. That's also very interesting because I could see it in myself and I could see it in the people around me when I first learned about it. So I found that really interesting. So between the test that I took in high school and when I encountered MBTI again, there was about a 5-year gap. And then I ended up taking a cognitive function test, and I think it gave me as the top result was extroverted intuition, but then it said that the type that I was most likely to be was INFP, and then ENFP, and then maybe INTP. So it, at least it seemed to indicate that I was a type that had higher ranking of extroverted intuition, which I think is accurate. And at this point, I'm fairly certain that I'm INFP, although I could be ENFP, considering this is day one of my official quarantine, and I'm out in the car making a video about a topic that most people don't really care about. And I'm out in my car so my family doesn't judge me or wonder what I'm doing. So I could be ENFP based on that. I don't know. Anyway, and so I learned about that. And then one thing that I've noticed about NFP types in general is that they seem to have a really specific, strong attachment to various bands, like specific bands. And also things like books and stuff like that too. They have really specific attachments to specific things like that. And for me, it's not even necessarily a nostalgia thing, but my top 3 favorite bands have been the same since I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and I'm 30 now. And Muse are they're my favorite, and the other 2 in my top 3 are The Killers and Green Day. And something that kind of made the light bulb go off for me is that a great number of the different artists and bands that I like have either INFP or ENFP or INFJ members. And it seems that Brandon Flowers from The Killers is likely INFP, and Billie Joe Armstrong from Green Day is likely ENFP. And those 2 bands specifically, kind of the reason why they're my favorite has a lot more to do with the lyrical content than Muse does. So I relate a lot more strongly to those lyrics, which isn't even necessarily the reason why I listen to music, but with them, it's I have this strong emotional attachment to a lot of their music. And so when I learned about that, I mean, I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. And my favorite book is 1984, and George Orwell seems to have been an INFP. So it's things like this that kind of go, oh, that makes a lot of sense for me now. I get it. And so I've noticed that with INFPs and ENFPs, those 2 types in particular seem to have strong attachments to specific things that last for a long period of time. So like I said, I mean, my favorite songs have been the same for over a decade, some of them, and they're The Killers and Green Day and Muse and stuff like that. So that's one thing that I kind of, I mean, you know, it made me feel a little bit better that, oh, well, maybe I'm not completely unusual, or, you know, there's not anything really wrong with me. It's just that INFPs and ENFPs, they're not the most common type. ENFP is more common. But it helped me to understand maybe why I have difficulties relating to some people, and what I can do to do better with that. So yeah, and the system as a whole, MBTI, I think sometimes it can be tempting to have an idea that some types are superior than others, especially this isn't so much in the community now, but I've seen, you know, on various parts of Reddit and stuff like that, there is, you know, I feel like there's a certain amount of bias against the sensing types, even though they're really cool people too. And that's the whole point, is that there's strengths and weaknesses to all the types. And that all the types are necessary for society to function at its best. That's why there's different types. And that's why certain people have different skill sets than others. So I think it is a really useful system, even if you just use it to understand yourself a little bit better and the people around you, and how you can maybe better your relationships with people who are completely different types than you. Because I know for me, when I learned about it and I read about all of the types, what I now understand to be the ESFP type, a lot of the time when I meet them in real life, I feel like it's too much sometimes. And so, but if you understand kind of what is motivating each type and how to get along better with each type, I think that can be really useful too. So I don't think that it's something that should just be outright dismissed because it's not able to be proven scientifically. I don't know if you can prove scientifically human cognition and, demonstrate somebody's thought process using data points. I don't know if you can. And I know that there has been at least one person, Dario Nardi. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly because I have his book, where he was doing brain scans of people and kind of showing that different areas of the brain are more active during different cognitive function activations, I guess. And so there would be different areas of the brain that would be more active in certain types versus other types. And so he was at least trying to show that there is something going on here and there is a difference. And so I think that's valuable too. But even without that, I think it's a useful thing. That's kind of my ramblings about this because I don't have anything better to do today. And so I'd love to know your thoughts about this and how you've interacted with MBTI and how it's maybe changed how you view yourself or view the world and how it's impacted your relationships or anything like that. I would love to know. Or if you think I'm just completely making things up and I'm not even an INFP or an ENFP, let me know about that too. Or if you just think MBTI is a bunch of nonsense, let me know about that. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a good day.